We now would move on with our first panel, which is essentially focused on emergency CBRN security risks. And with that, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Maria Espona, who is originally from Argentina, and she's co-director of the Information Quality in Argentina, which is a nonprofit organization promoting information quality methodology in Spanish-speaking countries. She teaches graduate courses in science and technology, disarmament, information quality, and digital intelligence at universities in Argentine, including the National Defense School, and she has also published very widely on weapons of mass destruction, especially biological weapons. She has served as technical expert at different CBRN security projects. She's originally trained as a biologist, has a master's in terrorism studies, and her PhD has looked at biological weapons and epidemiology. So quite a lot of diversified expertise here, and we very much look forward to your contribution. And just one final note from me. For the benefit of our interpreters, we just would like to keep in mind that as we have simultaneous interpretation, if you could please pace your talk so that interpreters can catch all the phrases and everything that you're saying. With that, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Espona, and thank you so much for your participation today.
Thank you, Tatiana. I will do my best to speak slow. It's not something easy to me, but I will do my best. Can you see my presentation? Okay, good. So yes. Thank you for inviting me to present this topic here for you today. I will speak about biological weapons and public health, the challenges and opportunities. But before starting with those, I would like to point out that regardless the origin of the outbreak, either if it's natural, accidental, or intentional, what we have is sick people. And the healthcare system has to deal with that by identification and treatment, and also later the contamination and waste management. The challenge here is, of course, do it under the proper biosafety conditions, but in a situation of uncertainty, because people arrive and no one knows what they have. And going back, to identify the origin, if it's accidental, intentional, or natural, we have there forensic disease surveillance, data analysis. But this is in a later stage. When the people is sick, you have to treat it, identify what they have, and treat them. So it's important in this context to gather as much information as possible regarding the patients, the activities, their national epidemiological situation, the origin. Why this is important, of course, to treat the patient as fast as possible against the right disease. As the one considers as BW diseases, and also do it under the proper biosafety conditions. What does it mean? That when the people arrive to the emergency room, the rooms are ready to deal with infectious diseases and with different kind of infectious disease. And if needed, to isolate them, put the patients in a safe environment, and also take care of and the nurses. The lesson and if after they all the responsible to
Maria, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but it seems that we are experiencing some... Dr. Espona?
I'm here.
Very sorry, but it seems that we are experiencing some issues with hearing you. So if you could please sort of just try repeating some of the information you've just shared, because there has been some disruption. I don't know if it would be easier if we try sharing the slides for you on our end.
Perfect. Yeah, let's try that.
Sure. Let's try to get this. Sorry about that, and
no, I'm very sorry.
Really the risks of the life. So I think your screen is now visible. So
yes.
I would like to return the floor back to you, and please continue. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Tatiana. And I'm very sorry for this in the poor internet connection. I unplug everything here, but it's not working perfect either. So I was mentioning the problem about how to deal with the patients without risking the healthcare personnel, and also the issues with the ventilation system, and how in many healthcare centers still there is a central ventilation system and it's not the proper one. Then something that is related also with the determination of the origin of the outbreak, it's important to have a chain of custody of the biomaterials, but also the contamination and safe waste management. And but to understand the origin, we need to check the usual pattern of the diseases, if they change or not. If it's an accident, inspect and assess and improve the safety conditions in the labs. And of course, if it's intentional, try to identify and prosecute the perpetrators. Next slide, please. So challenges and opportunities. The first challenge is to have early detection and the biological agent identification. For this, it's important to create a reporting system and also a healthcare and laboratories network in order to share the information in case something happens. Here we said biological agent identification, but we have to bear in mind that in some cases, with having only a syndrome or a set of symptoms identified, it's enough to start to deal with the situation. In some cases, it takes a long time to identify the proper agent, but having this syndrome or set of symptoms, it's possible to at least start to deal with the problem. Also, try to do some data gathering and analysis, including artificial intelligence, to create models and try to use them to understand different scenarios. That will help a lot. Also, we have something that is, you mentioned, Tatiana, the data protection and secure sharing of information. Living in the information era, we are not that used to not to share a lot of information via internet or by emails or use a VPN in our computers. We become very vulnerable because of that. And also it's important to raise awareness in the healthcare system to expect the unexpected. Gunther mentioned something before about this, that they are not expecting at the clinics or hospital either a chemical attack or biological attack, but they should be ready, because even when it's and there are events with low probability, they are possible still. Regarding biosafety, in laboratories is something that works quite well, but in the healthcare system, not as much. And I believe that this is extremely related to the unexpected patients that could arrive, that when they arrive sick to the clinic or to the hospital, the doctors or the nurses, they don't know if they have an infectious disease, which kind, if it's highly contagious or not. And also, as mentioned before, the central heating, the ventilation system, the good practices in dealing with the different kind of patients, and also in taking samples, etc. Next slide, please. Another aspect that I believe we should include in our analysis is how the climate change is affecting our environment, and why this is so relevant. If the climate changes, it alters the biological agent distribution, not only the agents, but of course the animals, their vectors, their hosts, everything change, and also the pace of the evolution can be affected as well, including that the species acquire new properties, or we have new species with different host spectrum or vector spectrum that change completely the dynamic and our understanding of what is going on in the nature. These changes in the environment, of course, change the dynamic and change the people lives in it. If it's possible to continue living or to have agricultural activities, and everything change or potentially can change. And we are seeing something in some countries. For example, the super hot summer that we just had here in Europe, or the one that is clearly arriving in South America. And finally, what we have to consider is that the infrastructure could be affected because of the weather and how the situation changed, or become obsolete because the region is no longer habitable by human. Next slide, please. A lot has been said about science and technology evolution in several forums. And we have to consider here not only the new developments, because the pace of the science and technology evolution is so fast that sometimes scares us, and it's difficult to keep up with them, to understand their impacts. And also what we see is this convergence of disciplines. It's not that we have only, as in the past, biology, chemistry. We have these interactions. Gunter mentioned something I'm sure Michael and Malcolm will do later. This is critical because when you have different disciplines, you have different people with different frameworks, with different education and different criteria. And mixing them together complicates how to perform a risk assessment, complicates communication. It's not that it's impossible or difficult or only difficult, but there are other issues that you have to cope with in between. And I believe that we should also consider the new applications that all staff, all equipment, or all science could have. It's a way of innovation, but this kind of equipment or science is not included in the export control regimes or in the convention. It's all stuff. But this all stuff is around. And we have to consider that maybe terrorist organizations or some countries could try to use this kind of technology because they are not and are available, not please.
Dr. Espona, can you hear me? I'm really sorry, Dr. Espona, could you hear me? Because we don't quite hear you. I think that Dr. Espona's connection might have fallen, and we hope that she'll try to get back. There she is. I think she reconnected. Dr. Espona, could you please try once again to introduce the slide, because I think that for a moment we seem to lost the reception with you.
Yeah, the previous one?
I think from this one is fine. The previous one, it was just towards the end where I think the voice started breaking, and then we didn't even catch the transition for the next slide. We just pushed that. So I do apologize for this, and sorry for interrupting your intervention.
No, again, I got the unstable connection. I'm very sorry. I saw that the connection. No, I saw that be good, and it is not the case. But let's try again. I mentioned several challenges and opportunities for improvement, but I think that the biggest challenge that we are facing is the lack of governance of via risk framework. That it's like we are approaching the problem from different angles, but not in a systemic way. And because of that, we are missing the opportunity to have the whole picture and understand the interactions between the components. For example, here, I wanted to point out that in this framework, what we have clearly are organizations, people, and data. Organizations means that we have a legal framework, we have its enforcement, but at the same time, we have the management of the organization and how it works. And in this case, it's important to understand that the different levels in the organizations, they don't have the same risk perception or the same understanding of the problems. And it is related to whom to approach if we have to raise awareness about, in this case, healthcare and outbreaks identifications and these kind of things. And regarding people, we have, of course, the sick people, that it's the result of an outbreak that we still don't know the origin at this point, and also all the stakeholders involved. And because of having people and having organization, what we have is data, that it's a result of all the activities and consequences in different areas of an outbreak. For example, if we are analyzing a topic, you have data production analysis that it needs, of course, to protect it properly and also manage properly. So it means who has access to what, how this information is shared, if there are communication protocols or no, also how the information is storage, and the security in order to prevent any intrusions. This is something that could be obvious for the IT community, but in the research environment is not as such. And also, as you know, there is export controls or controls against that regulate intangible transfer that are different in different countries. So maybe I send some information to Tatiana that from my country perspective is okay, but for her receiving it's a problem. So we have to bear that in mind as well. And also regarding this data, we have a lot of data that could be used in the future in order to identify the origin of an outbreak. And these kind of data are, for example, the over-the-counter sales in the pharmacy, the traffic patterns changed, the school absenteeism. There are many indicators, or even the Google search. I'm sure most of you know that you can check in Google which word is more used. So if people is using fever and coughing, or looking for fever and coughing symptoms or diseases, you can track down in time how the patterns were. So all of this data can be compiled and be useful also as early warning or as another tool to detect that something is going on. Because we always have to bear in mind that depending on the severity of the symptoms, maybe the people affected by a disease, they are not going to the medical doctor. We saw this with the COVID. I believe that we get a lot of experience from this outbreak, so we should bear all of this in mind. Next slide, please. Oh, and it's good that I prepared a very short presentation because of this horrible connection. So it was possible to identify many challenges, but also, and I'm optimistic because there is room for improvement. There are a lot of opportunities to improve. And another thing is that we mostly focus on biological agents affecting humans. But the same analysis, the one that we just did, it's needed for animal and plant diseases, particularly animal diseases that could become zoonotic. And I strongly believe, and it's something that we discussed with Jean-Pascal many times, that it's needed a transdisciplinary approach to build this governance framework. It's not only with experts in biology or security or chemistry, but we need sociologists and another kind of expertise in order to build a proper governance framework, and also to involve the stakeholders and the different kind of stakeholders, consider the data that are available and the organizations involved, particularly in this landscape that is changing so fast that is scary. So these are my final thoughts, and I thank you. Thank you for your patience. Here you have my email and contact information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Espona, for the very insightful talk, and we do apologize for the connection and for having to interrupt you at several times. But we are glad that in the end we managed to pull this off, and we very much appreciate you being able to participate. And I think that the topic that you cover is particularly important and